Welcome back to this week's episode of How to Start Your Private Practice in Canada. This is episode 6, what to do once you actually got that first client. So this video is about what you actually need for that first client. No extra things, no this makes it feel a little bit better, like just the bare bones of what you actually need for that first client. So of course the first bit is actually really easy. It's all the things that you know from school, and so you're going to have to need your assessment form, like what are you going to be doing for your intake with them? Are you doing any standardized outcome measures that you can track later in your therapy? And so you can get a lot of that kind of stuff online for free, and you can purchase different types if you want. There's lots of different things, like Pearson online now actually has a electronic database that you can sign up for an annual subscription, and then your clients fill it out online and it generates a report for you and does all like the scoring and everything for you, which is amazing. And then I think per form, like depending on which one you use, I think the one that I used was $2 for the actual form. So I think it was like 100 some for the annual membership, but then for the actual forms of all the different Pearson tests. So definitely worth it if you want to go into like the paperless direction. But yeah, you're going to need to figure out what you're doing for your initial assessment. Even if it's just like an interview kind of thing, it doesn't have to be standardized, but you do need to have a plan, obviously. And then you will also need a consent form. We've attached one, 2 different types actually, for you to kind of like go through and change and like make your own. So your consent form is a legal form, and so you're going to want to really look through it and make sure it's what you want it to be. If you're uncomfortable, you could actually even take it to a lawyer, but there's lots of them online that you can kind of use as templates. And some consent forms are as simple as like, you consent for me to be treating you, and that's it. So they don't have to be fancy, but they can be as fancy as you want them to be. So that would be another one that you need. You need a consent form, you need to have your assessment, you need to have your outcome measure. Now this is where it kind of deviates from everything that you learned in school. Not that this is new, but because you're doing one-on-one therapy, you're gonna have to invoice them. And so what you can do is just go to Walmart or any like stationery store, Office Depot or whatever they're called, and pick up an invoice book. It's super easy. Ta-da! These are a couple of my old ones. They are triplicate, and so there's like a little divider thingy in them, and you put it underneath and you write it out. You give them one, you get to keep one, and you can give the third one to your accountant if you want. I don't know. I don't really know what the third one is for, but there's triplicate, so that's always handy in case you lose them. And then of course, last but not least, you're going to need some kind of scheduler so that you can schedule your next appointment with them. So you need assessment forms, consent form, invoicing, and scheduler. That's what the fourth one was. So those are what you actually have to take with you to the client. So now we're going to talk about, what do you legally need to be doing this? So of course you need to be a trained, certified health professional. Lots of people put up their degrees in their workspaces because it helps to communicate and develop trust with the clients. If you display it in a common area, you don't have to like walk them over and be like, look, these are my designations, but it's nice for them to know. Have your practice license numbers and that kind of stuff ready. Make sure you put them on your invoices because insurance companies need that information to be able to reimburse your client. So yeah, step 1, be professional. Perfect, check, done. The next one that is an absolute must is malpractice insurance. You absolutely have to have this if you're practicing on your own. It's not as expensive or scary as it sounds. There are lots of different choices for this, but I find that the easiest to go with is through your professional regulatory body. And so I know for occupational therapists, when I first started, I could register with the Canadian Association of Occupational Therapists and get a malpractice insurance with the membership, and it was ridiculously cheap. Like I think the first year was $50 for the insurance, and then I think the year after that it goes up to their regular amount, which again for a year I think it's like 100 and something. So again, it's actually really cheap. With the membership, I think it came to like $300. So it is an annual fee that you have to do, which would be on top of your registration fee. If you're still working in a public practice, they'll cover your registration fee usually. Actually, it depends on your employer. Some employers are like amazing, like mine were, and they'll actually cover that fee for you. And so it's something that you have to keep in mind if you're going totally private practice. You have to be able to cover that registration fee, and you have to cover your malpractice fee, which would be, for me, a national membership as well. So yeah, shop around, talk to some insurance guys. I'm sure there's lots of different options out there, but I would bet money that the national regulatory body has the cheapest and probably the most comprehensive and like perfect match for the work that you do. All right, business licenses. So you're gonna have to call City Hall. I can't do this for you because I don't know where you are, and you have to call and you have to figure out, do you need this if you're working out of your house? Do you need this if you're working out of your car? Do you need this if you're driving all over the countryside and you're seeing lots of different clients in lots of different towns? You don't want to be one of those groups of people that all of a sudden gets in trouble. We had this happen in our town where there was a citywide announcement that these people were coming around and that they did not have a business license, that they were not legit, and they were not permitted to do business in the city. And that's super embarrassing, and you do not want to be that person. So make sure you call first and figure it out. Make sure you get a license if you need it. They're very friendly usually down at City Hall, so just give them a shout. Okay, tax numbers. Short answer to this question is no. If you are just starting, you're dabbling a little bit on the side, you do not need a tax number in most provinces. So I've called a bunch of my friends across Canada and I've asked them, and I've gone online and I've looked it up, and from what I can see, you do not need a provincial tax number in most provinces. Don't take my word for this and check for yourself, but like in Saskatchewan, I don't need one because I provide health services and I do not sell products, okay? So if I import products or I sell products, I need a PST number, okay? So like if you import anything, even like supplies for your business, like Vistaprint cards, technically they're gonna want you to voluntarily submit for bringing in Vistaprint cards, and Vistaprint will give you like fancy tax invoices and stuff like that. But most of the time, that's a creaky chair. Most of the time you do not need a tax, like a PST number, okay? So now, what about GST? Okay, so GST, so that's federal tax. That means that you're gonna need one when you go over $30,000. Okay, so when I first started, I thought it meant like $30,000 in a business year. Like, so let's say you started in January, to January would be like your business year. So don't go over $30,000 in your business year, good. But my accountant told me that if you go over $30,000 in any 12-month chunk, so let's say from January to January, you don't go over $30,000. But let's say February was your really, really good month. And so from February to February, let's say you have another really good February month, you go over $30,000, you must get a GST number. And so yeah, over 30K, they want you to register. And so that's not a bad thing. It just means that you have to charge your clients GST as well. And then that money goes straight to the government. And so it's not like it has to come out of your pocket for this. It just has to be added on to the invoices once you go over $30,000. So if you're close, what I did is you can just warn your like big clients, your major clients, you can just warn them like, hey, I'm getting close to this line. There might be a point mid-year where I have to charge you GST. And usually they're okay with that. So next we're going to talk about what you actually need at your house. We've got what you need to see your client. We've got what you need to do it legally. Now it's what do you need at your house. This is going to depend on if you're doing paperless or with paper, okay? So even with the invoicing, you can get an invoice book and that's super, super easy. Or you can just like make your own invoices and email them to the client, or like some kind of email data transfer so that it's paperless and then you keep it on your records. That will work and that's legal and you can totally do that. Okay, so we're going to talk about paperless first. Okay, so for legal records, you need double locks. If you push your regulatory bodies and you call them and you ask them about this kind of stuff, they might get a little bit squeamish because it's kind of new for them. And so I think a lot of regulatory bodies' official statement is like, read the bylaws. It's not our job to dictate like what you do for your private practice. I know a couple of my friends in other provinces have heard that story, like it's not our job, you just need to comply with legislation. So we're not going to give you the answers you need, you just kind of have to interpret it from the bylaws. So that's not exactly helpful all the time, but double lock system. Always think that, okay? And so if you get a external hard drive, get one with a locking, like a security function, like a password, because that'll count as one of your locks. And then if you buy a safe, like I bought a like waterproof, fireproof safe kind of thing, and then you throw the external hard drive with the password into the safe that usually also has a lock, there's your double locking thing. And then you don't need to dedicate an entire room to your files. And those external hard drives can store enough data for years, and then when you run out, you just go get another one and it fits into the safe because you just throw it in there, label them by year or by year period, depending on what you need for destruction of records, remember? So make sure they're not confusing, they're not just a whole bunch of black external hard drives that you have no idea which one's which, but until you hit hundreds of clients, that's not going to be a problem. And then of course at home you're going to need some kind of like smart device or computer to type up your records. We're going to talk about it a little bit later, but for the records you can't just like leave them in Word or Notebook or whatever, because you can change them afterwards, so it's not a legal record. But we're going to talk more about that in another episode. But so you're going to need a computer, you're going to need an external hard drive, and you're going to need a safe. And then you can keep your records in a nice little safe box, and you don't have to dedicate an entire room in your house. So that's how you would do it in the paperless fashion. Now if you want to go with paper, which is super easy to set up because it's paper, right? So you got your paper invoices, you got your paper forms, like just a chart form kind of thing. You write your note, you sign it, you date it, you put it into the file with the client's name and like the date of treatment period kind of thing. You're going to need a filing cabinet to store those records in. The filing cabinet will need a lock, and then the room that you store the filing cabinet in will also require a lock. Or call your regulatory body, see if they'll let it fly, because like I don't know if the house lock will count as the second lock, or if the room itself needs to have that second lock for the double locking policy. So that is what you absolutely need for your first client. You have all that stuff that you have to take your client, you have all your legal stuff to make it legal to do what you're doing, and then you need all of your stuff at home for your storage of clients. That's all you need. So fun stuff. I know I wasn't gonna say this, but I love it. I love business cards and brochures. They're so much fun to make. There's lots of websites online that will help you make really easy ones. Lots of towns have local printing companies that you can go and talk to and print them on your own. Of course, I mentioned Vistaprint earlier. That is super easy to use. I absolutely love business cards. They are so much fun, and I change them every single time that I order them, which is not very good for continuation of your brand, which we'll talk about in another video, but I love them. So this was my last one that I did. It's got information on the front and the back, and it was pink and black, and I loved it. And then these are my new ones. Oh, they're so fancy. And there's like, it's like got texture on the front. I love it. And then more information on the back. So yeah, you can change them, you can make them whatever you want them to be. You can even download business cards onto a Word document and make them yourself. I usually find though that if you're printing a lot and you're handing out a lot of cards, which you should be, you're going to want to order them, because printing them yourself is going to get really expensive and not really worth it. So if you're going to print like 200, 300, 500 cards, it's better to order them online or get them printed locally rather than printing them on your own. And the ones that you print on your own won't have the nice like shiny, glossy, like stiff business card kind of feel. I print my brochures on my own because I don't hand out a ton of them. I should probably order them online and hand out a lot more because brochures have more details about like what you're actually doing and the services that you provide. And so yeah, we'll talk about that later. But you don't need these. You don't need them at all, but they're just kind of nice to have, and they're fun. So your homework for this week is to go to the resource store, download those consent forms that we made for you, and I think we added a couple other forms that you can kind of play with. And I really hope that that first client visit goes really well. Congratulations on finding your first client. This is gonna be awesome. Like, go over your plan, don't be too nervous, and it's gonna be okay. Next week, we're going to talk into more specifics about record keeping. So today we kind of talked about like the standards of how you keep them. Next week, we're going to talk about more about like what you have to keep in your records and how to keep your records legal so that when you get audited, because it will happen, it happened to me last year, that you have a seamless, beautiful audit session and you don't have too much after work to do to comply with your local registration. So I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. I hope that you continue following our video training series. Please leave feedback, any questions or comments so that we can help you get into practice. If there's anything unclear about this week's video, please let me know. I'm going to put links into how to find the first video in this series, and we're on video 6 of 8, and so we're almost done. We only got 2 more left before your basic training series is done. And so yeah, keep up with your homework and we'll see you next week.